They are smart, they are funny, and unfailingly entertaining. They are the adults in the room, and they are here to help you be the best adult you can be. Whether it is matters of the heart, finances, or work that's weighing on your mind, worry not. The adults in the room will help you stay winning.
That time for us to get into our hot topic. Today we're talking about dealing with a spouse suffering from psychosocial, mental and intellectual disabilities. And just to help us with this conversation later on, Eric and Barbara, we have a special guest coming through, Dr. Susan Gitau, who is more than qualified to handle this. She's a counselor and a psychologist. So you just need to hang around so that we can just draw out of her the gems that we need in order to just deal with this conversation, and not only from the lay side that we'll just throw around right here in the studio, but from a professional side that she'll bring later on as we go along.
Absolutely. Dear msikilizaji, as you know, mental illness is very hard on marriage and any relationship, actually. The stress can often reach a crisis level. But mental illness doesn't have to destroy a marriage or partnership. At least that's what I believe, Barbara.
Yes, it doesn't.
Yeah, so how do you then cope when your partner has mental illness? And I'm glad today, as Emmanuel has rightfully said, we have Susan Gitau. Dr. Susan Gitau.
Yes.
Daktari will be joining us right about maybe 20 minutes from now, or thereabout, or less, and over via Skype very, very shortly. So keep your notebooks ready. But I feel that, Barbara, very strongly, in spite of the obvious challenges, there are ways to maintain a healthy relationship where your partner has mental illness.
Yes.
And I feel that one of the ways you can cope, this is obviously from a lot of reading and a lot of stories and conversation. I will admit that I haven't experienced it yet, but I know you can cope from, again, reading by showing support and sympathy to the partner who is suffering mental illness. If you're newly diagnosed with any disease, Emmanuel, even any chronic disease, what normally would happen is that the news can be very devastating, embarrassing most times, and even frightening. There is a little booklet, DM Skilazaji, if you are fond of reading as I am. It's called Tuesdays with Maury by a gentleman called Ablom. Mitch Ablom wrote Tuesdays with Maury. And in it, he talks about a professor who is suffering from ALS. And he is discovered after visiting a doctor. And the doctor gives him this prognosis that is quite devastating. And then he leaves the doctor's office, walks around the streets, and he's wondering to himself, how can people be going on with their lives while mine is shattered, And later on, it's found out that it cannot be reversed and he's going to pass on. So he starts doing a mock funeral. He does a mock funeral. He calls his friends over, and then he says, I want you guys to say, he calls his students, I want you guys to say things you would say if my casket were lying here. So each one of them stands and say, Prof, you've done this and that. And it's a phenomenal book. You should read it. So like the Tuesdays with Maury's story, if any of us today is met with the devastating news about our health, any chronic illness, be it maybe a severe mental illness or even just whichever other illness, we are often devastated, embarrassed, and even frightened. So uncertainty of this kind and even stigma associated with especially mental illness can cause the person suffering to worry that you may not love or desire them, you as the partner who is healthy. So I think it's very important as the healthy partner to show sympathy and support. And how I think somebody can do that, Emmanuel and Barbara and you, Mskilizaji, is by reassuring them as you go along, all right? You are assuring them about towards ways to strengthen their determination and resolve, and even reassuring them to points where they can go and seek professional help. For instance, the one we are about to get from Dr. Susan Gitau. But if you say, Emmanuel, say you react negatively or you say something mean, then what quickly starts to happen is that your mean words or your mean habits can quickly exacerbate symptoms of the person suffering from mental illness and bring additional feelings of, hopelessness and more despair. So I sense very strongly, even without yet being a professional, that just sympathy and reassuring and being present in a loving way goes a longer way when you have a partner who's suffering mental health.
I totally agree with what you're saying. Let me just echo the sentiments that you started with when you talked about getting more information. And I agree with you when you, I think as a partner, you need to try and educate yourself. Many people are uninformed about mental illness or have very inaccurate information when it comes to certain disorders or diagnoses. Yeah. So there's a lot of misinformation in the public. And when someone hears the word mental illness, some people throw, that stigma, hey, wewe ni wazimu, or, they do not have many nice things to say. But people need to know that there is actually treatment. You can do therapy, there's treatment out there that can assist your partner. So I would say, try and get as much information about it. You can get information online. You can get information through literature. You can consult professionals to help you. But when you go to online, I would say go to legitimate websites or that you've been referred to. Because sometimes you've seen if you go to Google and tell them you have a headache or you're having XYZ, my God, the diagnosis they'll give you can get scared. So educate yourself on the diagnosis after your partner's been given a diagnosis. Educate yourself on that. Then from there, start the journey. And in terms of sympathy, what you're saying, I totally agree on that. You need to show them sympathy and support. This is the point that if you're not very careful, your relationship can slip through the cracks. Because one person will end up feeling like, oh my God, will this person stay? As you're saying, will this person be there for me in the long haul, or is just this momentarily? So you need to be able also to be not only show sympathy, but support during this time.
Yeah, Barbara was, if you just think about it, it's especially for someone like me who's married, like the challenge of your spouse, maybe in the beginning, you started out well.
Yes.
And then, during the marriage, now someone, develops, a real mental illness, or if at all it was just budding, it now, grows into full bloom. And now you're married, and I was just thinking, I was just putting, myself in someone's who's in such a situation's shoes. And, it's a very challenging place to be.
Yes.
Because, like the different, types of mental illness. And I'm sure Dr. Susan will share with us more. But, this is someone you're sleeping next to on the daily. Yeah. So I feel like one of the things I'd say, for as someone who's married is like you have to remember now, why you came together. Like you came together for the long haul, right? Like you
for
didn't
better,
just
for worse.
You didn't just hook up, so that you can hang out and have coffee in Gitau. You're there for that partner, and you have to remember that commitment of, I'm going to be with this person, and if they're going through this tough time, I'm going to be with them. And Eric, I remember the story of my mother-in-law, who is, one of my heroes in regard to how she took care of her husband. He wasn't going through mental illness, but he was going through a lot of psychological torture because, he was just a regular guy, and then he got sick, and suddenly he can't move from his seat. He can't leave a week without someone taking him to, the hospital in, the Meru environs for him to get that dialysis. And when it got worse, he needed someone, a full-time caregiver, and my mother-in-law was there.
Played that role.
Yes, and during he passed on, but during the funeral, one of my now cousins-in-law was saying, huyu mama hakuna mtu kama huyu mama. Tulikuwa tunamuona kila siku anaamka mapema, anapeleka mzee, anachunga mzee, mtu asiwahi ongea anything alete fujo na huyu mama. And you could see where he was coming, because you see the other guys are relatives, but they are not there. They can't be there. They can't be there because they're living their lives. But this lady had just taken her life. She'd worked at it, her own aspirations kando, and decided she's going to take care of this guy. So I feel like that is something that we just throw out there, that we have to remember why we came together. This is now your spouse, and you have to be their partner for life.
Yeah, just to add on what you're saying, I think sometimes people forget that mental illness is a disease. It is not something that is contagious. So the way you treat your partner is very important. Don't discriminate them or segregate them in any way, because they can see. They might not, it's not like their brain is detached from them, so they are able to experience certain things. And the role that you play in their life at that particular point, how you treat them, how you relate to them, really matters.
Today we're discussing dealing with a spouse suffering from psychosocial, mental, and intellectual disabilities. And remember, shortly, Dr. Susan Gitau is going to join us. She's, a lady of, some real depth, and, she's a counseling psychologist. I'm going to share more about, some of the things she's done, and they are big. And, we're honored to have her. Eric, I was sharing with you guys something, but let's check out what's happening on the internet.
Absolutely, Msikilizaji. Remember, you can share your thoughts about the conversations we are having, but also just a personal invitation from me to you. As Emmanuel has said, we are talking about, how to cope and deal with a spouse who suffers from psychosocial, mental, and intellectual disabilities. We've decided to bring on board a serious Daktari in Dr. Susan Gitau. So please, if you have any questions, if you need any clarifications, if you want her to explain anything, you want to just extend a hand of invitation to you, you can do that through our all social media platforms, Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. Also, we allow anonymity. You don't have to share publicly. You could also just DM Barbara in our private Facebook page, or Emmanuel or myself, if you have any pressing questions you need Daktari to answer. And let us learn together. I'm very excited to learn. Barbara, what are you learning?
Yeah, just before I continue, I've seen people on our Facebook page, that those who have commented that they've tried to commit suicide. We have Dr. Susan Gitau's, just go on her TL, and you can reach out to her directly, or any other psychologist or counselor who would be able to reach you. I see you, Kalim Kare, Cynthia Mwende saying she's present and taking notes. Collins anasema locked in for the big show. Pauline is also taking notes. Then we also got a new member this week, Anajita, last born were adults in the room. I forgot to tell you today. Valentine. Is it Tain? Because I'm going to TH. A Chepto. She's officially the last born or adults in the. She self-declared herself this week. So yes, darling, I recognize you.
Sana.
Yes, and into a last born way too. Dr. Njoroge, I also see you. Joel K. Chanda, I see you, people. And Joel says, just waiting to learn more and more. Tuned in from Eldoret. Emmanuel should play my request. Usijali, he gave you a replacement. I believe you heard that. And Ajuang George says he's tuned in. And Kibe says he's always learning on the daily.
So Joel is no longer our last one.
Sasa ameshindwa.
He's a Joel.
Lakini bado I think ni same ameachwa ni sawa. Tumechange roles from a man to a woman, last one.
Well, Eric, what do you think about what I was saying earlier about just being there for the long haul when your spouse is going through mental challenges?
No, I sense one of the reasons I'm very cautious not to jump into a relationship is because as I'm growing older, I am understanding commitment, Barbara.
I know, but you also know when Moga.
No, maybe
what mambo a relationship.
Maybe when I was much younger, especially in my late 20s, I was very peripheral about the need to be committed.
True.
My understanding of commitment was very skewed. In that I was expecting that somebody would meet a particular criteria that I'd set out, and then maybe I can decide to commit. But then you realize that life has a habit of throwing you curveballs that you're not ready for. So if and when life would happen and your significant other would suffer mental illness, you need to be in, both feet in.
Yes.
All right? You cannot be wishy-washy. You cannot be... and that starts from when you're dating in happier times. You have to make a decision that come rain or sunshine, I am committed.
Yes.
And commitment is waking up even when it's raining to do what needs to be done.
Yes.
Commitment is leaving even when the sun is super hot to do what it's done, what needs to be done, or when the wind is blowing so hard, then it's a lot of dust. So regardless of the season or time, you are committed. So I think now that I'm learning to be more committed, thankfully I haven't involved myself in anything that requires commitment before I'd come to this realization. But I realize, Emmanuel, now that if you are committed, then whichever the season, you can weather the storm. And I would like to think of a couple who's, has a significant other who's suffering from mental illness, to look at it hopefully
Yes.
as a challenge more than a life sentence, that this is just the thing that is going to drain us and make us go asunder. It is a challenge, and indeed, as we were saying earlier, mental illness can be cured. It's treatable. Some of it is treatable.
Yes.
And with professional help, as we'll hear just now, you can learn of ways to go about it. But I think of importance for me is to be committed and to decide upon that commitment.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And despite educating yourself, showing sympathy and being committed in that particular relationship during this time, I feel it is you as the spouse should try as much as possible avoid becoming a therapist to your spouse or an enabler, even if you are maybe a professional in that particular field. Take the role of the family member, take the role of being present for this particular person, because you do not want to mix your emotions and the treatment of your spouse. I know sometimes we tend to read a lot and you feel like, oh, if therapist XYZ say this, I would want to do this. No, make this particular person know that you are there for them as a friend, as a family member, and not as a medic.
But if you're trained, you can't, just take advantage of your own personal experience, like Dr. Gitau, for instance, and use that knowledge to help out your partner.
It's usually not advised. And let me give an example of my family. My dad is a counselor, and many times we've gone through things, especially in different circles within our family, and he would tell us very openly. While yes, he counsels other people, he'll tell you, I'm going to refer you to Dr. X or to Eric, but he'll not take that initiative. He says sometimes it is close to heart, you can end up being compromised, or you might not give a professional or a neutral decision. So sometimes you're asked, especially if you're in that profession, to step aside and be the family member, be the spouse, and let someone else take charge of that. Because you can end up either being nepotic when it comes to advising them or their treatment, or you'll be seeing them through the eyes of your heart. And you need to also open your mind when it comes to certain things.
It's good, Eric, you remember like when we were starting out the show, and I think towards those days, it's as if the conversations around mental health had just reached the place where it was exploding, where people were now seeing the importance on this side of the planet of being okay mentally, like mental health, because just speaking as a lay person, because I'm not a psychologist, you remember the days when something would happen and you quickly say mtu wangu amerogwa, sijui mtu wangu,
ini wazimu.
Yes, sijui tulifanya nini, then you start looking for some weird solutions. People traveling to TZ to look for a certain mganga,
Or they carry white chicken.
a certain guy who came to your compound on that day. Cheki alikuwa amevaa shati ya white, akakuja akaokota
Na
kitu,
alikuja na ile mbuzi ya
alafu
white
akaenda
na black.
naye. Yes. So I'm glad that Dr. Susan is coming through, because now we are getting to a place where we are understanding that yes, there are those things which happen, but we have to also have the basis of this could be somebody who is just going through a mental challenge, and if you expose them to the right professional, you can actually get real solutions that are going to make the lives of your loved ones better, rather than this random trips and calling those posters. Those posters of piga simu hapa,
Daktari mashuhuri.
Yes, Dr. Juma. So it's an exciting place to be, where this story of mental health is growing across this side of the planet, and hopefully it will permeate to our villages and those places.
Absolutely. And while I've asked them, msikilizaji, to send their questions, one I'm particularly excited to ask is so that Dr. Susan will expound for us the different elements of mental illness and types also, because I sense very strongly that a lot of us, upon hearing mental illness, we start imagining that somebody has a big gunia and he's picking things from Mapipa.
Yes.
All right. So I'm very interested to hear different elements from her psychological expertise, so that some of us who don't have a gunia might be suffering some forms of mental illness unknown to us. So that will make for an interesting conversation. And yes, indeed, I agree with you. And especially on Twitter, as a fervent user of Twitter, I see a lot of conversations that are healthy conversations around mental health and mental health awareness, so that we are better versed with the challenges and even how to go about mental health. And a lot of people have been coming to the fore and saying, look, this is Dr. X, this is Dr. Y you can talk to. And and also the healthy aspects of ways you can be mentally healthy, and how to keep your mental health healthy. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It does.
Yes. So, which is also a conversation, dear msikilizaji, we are looking to have any moment now. But I agree with you totally, Emmanuel. More of these conversations need to be done so that we debunk the, useless notion that you are done and your goose is cooked upon suffering any forms of mental illness.
Yeah, and also I like the fact that our government has taken charge in the sense of like a mental health conversation is now on the fore. If you remember the last press briefing that our president had, he also mentioned that certain people were given or commissioned to do policies to discuss this particular matter. And many people have actually done that. A commission was set and they gave the report to our CS earlier this week. I remember I watched that press conference and was glad that, it's about time that people speak about this. You're right to say not everyone who has a mental disease is insane, is walking out naked. Some of them are just seated next to you or amongst us in our families or even in our workplace. So this is a conversation that needs to be pushed.
Yeah, totally. We need to keep talking. Dear msikilizaji, if you're joining us just now, we are speaking about ways to cope and deal with your spouse who has suffered from or suffers from psychosocial, mental and intellectual disabilities. Because of obvious reasons, we are right in the midst of a pandemic. So our guests aren't coming to the studio just yet. They will soon. And we are trying to connect Dr. Susan Gitau, who is a mental health expert. She's a trained counselor and also a psychologist, and she'll be joining us any moment now. So please, as we are waiting upon her, you can start sending your questions on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Our handle remains the same, SpiceFMKE. You can do it in a public forum or even just on our DMs. And we also, as I said earlier, allow anonymity. So feel free. If you don't want your name read out, we are happy to do that. If you don't want your address read out, we're also happy to do that. But, keep all of your thoughts and feedback coming. We are going to have a very, very riveting conversation and learn together.
When you were talking about a pandemic, I remember someone said a few weeks ago that mental health is a silent pandemic. And it has been there. It's just because people are not speaking out. Yeah. As we wait for Dr. Susan, and we can just share out, I can just share out some of the mental disorders or some of the mental illness that I've had that are out there, and she can actually clarify. Some people get anxiety and panic attacks. We have the bipolar type 1 and type 2. Yeah. We have people who've had depression. That is all still categorized as mental illness. Of course, yes. We've had obsessive compulsive disorder. I've had the issue of eating disorders. I'm forgetting the ones that...
You purge.
Yes, yeah. It's like,
models have that.
Yes, models have. That is actually also a mental illness, personality disorders, post-traumatic stress. It's called PTSD. Yeah, that is psychosis. There are very many out there. So yes, I'm also glad that we're having a doctor to help us just run through it.
Yeah, no, totally.
And Eric, there's a video I came across today, guys. There's this guy called Joseph James D'Angelo, who was...
Joseph James D'Angelo?
Yes.
Is that the musician?
I want it was the same thing.
No. The musician, this is another guy.
Is he Nigerian?
No, he's not Nigerian. He's an American. He was arrested in the States, because of around 4 decades ago. He murdered and killed many people. So he used to do very crazy thing. Like he murdered, he raped over 50 people. You know, he murdered 13 people. But the interesting thing is, it took so long to get him. All right. And if you watch the video where he was just confessing to everything and saying guilty, old man, like he's saying guilty. I am guilty, like to every charge that was being read out. And the only reason he was caught is because because of the advancements in DNA. So they can match DNA from here and from there, and they check it out and find out that it was actually this guy. Yeah. So like such a guy, he was a policeman walking around, during the day doing the policeman things, and at night he changes into a predator and starts murdering people. This very heinous things like raping women in front of their husband. Jesus. So that is someone with a mental health, a mental condition, not mental, a mental condition. So if you look at the person, they look normal, but the actions that they're doing behind the curtains are crazy things. So Eric, it just goes to what you're saying about like someone who's walking in the streets of Tao, who even themselves they think they're normal, and but they're in the middle of a mental challenge. Yes. Right? And that is why this conversation is so important. Just maybe you're sitting around, maybe even you think your spouse is okay, or they're just extreme or extra, as Barbara says, but probably maybe they have a real mental challenge. Yeah. That is why this conversation, I feel, is very important.
Yes.
Without much further ado, I just want to connect with Dr. Susan Gitau right now. Dr. Susan Gitau is, she's a counseling psychologist. She's also the chair of counseling psychology department, at the African Nazarene University. She's also the founding trustee of Susan Gitau Counseling Foundation. She's a trauma counseling expert. She's a consultant therapist and a trainer and facilitator in mental, health. And we are very honored to have her. And she's just been so patient with us, and she's made time to connect with us. Dr. Susan, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Karibu sana. Thank you so much for being patient with us and connecting with us today.
It happens. Asante sana.
Yeah, karibu sana. I'm in studio with you'll hear other voices. There's Eric, and there's also Barbara.
Habari daktari.
Salama kabisa. Is that Barbara now?
Yes, that is Barbara.
And this happens to be Eric, Daktari. Karibu sana, Daktari. Yes.
Asante.
So Daktari, as we've been waiting for you. We're talking about dealing with a spouse suffering from psychosocial, mental, and intellectual disabilities, and we are so excited. Like at least a professional is now on the line. Just to get the ball rolling. How would you, advise someone, like we can start from there, someone who's has, a spouse with a mental challenge, where can they start?
Wow, thank you so much, Eric. I'm hoping, because I just joined your discussion, that you had talked about who is this person. This is like people with mental disability. We changed that term to avoid stigmatization. Otherwise, people before used to talk of mental retardation. Yeah. They are just the 1% of the world population, and their IQ is normally 70 and below. If it goes very high, it's up to 75. Mm-hmm. And you realize that these people are not able to socialize like you could be cracking jokes. This person does not understand what this is. You could be happy about something, but they are not with you. Or you can find them happy about something, and you are the one wondering what is funny here. Yeah. And we do have some. That is not the way they were born, sadly. Probably you went through some accident or traumatic situations, you lost your speech, you lost your hearing, and that can affect the way you interact with other people socially, and how you also process thoughts cognitively, and even how you express your emotions.
Yes.
And such people, when they are children, there's a different way you deal with them, but it doesn't change very much when they are adults. But now you can imagine when you get this person as your spouse. I want to imagine if you are also not at their same level, there must have been that motivation from the inside that made you to decide this is the person I am going to marry. That means you must have gone against so many odds to say yes to this person as a spouse. Even when they may change because of accidents or any traumatic situations in their lives, that they no longer behave the way they were before, to stay with them again, it must be something you have fully decided and you want to go on with it, whether people say you've lost your mind or not. And so, as a spouse, this is someone that needs a lot of compassion. When I talk about compassion, it's not sympathy, it is not necessarily empathy, but it is imagining what this person could be going through when everybody else is happy, when everybody else is understanding stuff and they are not. And you can just imagine the pain and the suffering in their world. And you can decide, I want to do something to alleviate that suffering. That is what we call compassion. And compassion has a lot of kindness. So, for example, I am this spouse. And I am like this person. There are times I know I really need to make them happy, but they cannot understand the way I am doing it. So what you need to do is to don't give up. You can always tell when they are happy, but you cannot tell it when you don't spend ample time with them. Because even the children that people have who have mental retardation or mental disability, people get to know when they are changing emotionally. So even as adults, you can tell. We do also have people, although I wasn't able to really understand where you guys were coming from, but when you talk about psychosocial disability, I am even thinking about someone who is mentally challenged at this particular moment of COVID-19, called the special population. How do you deal with them? I want to tell you all of them, they have emotions. Even if they cannot intellectually make sense of what is going on, they have feelings. And even if you cannot read from their face, for some who are seriously disturbed or differently abled, you may not read those emotions and know what exactly it is. But I like to tell people with compassion, you go directly to the eyes. Like we say, the eyes are the windows to the soul. All of us, when we are treated nicely, even if I cannot show it on my face, my body shows it. So you can imagine majority of those spouses are easily led. So you can just call some, even when you beckon them and they come. And that is how people end up abusing them as adults. Because they're not making out what you're planning. And that's why you find, like, even if they are not married, they are young, people have sexually abused them, emotionally abused them, physically abused them, because they can't intellectually decide like you do. So it's important if people have, why I'm talking about compassion, you always imagine how this person is suffering in the inside, even if they can't make it out. And if you can even go further, imagine you are the one. How would you like to be treated? So they like to receive affection. So, and I've told you, you can tell even if they are adult, things that make them happy. You can tell if you give them something, even if there is no expression, the way they hold it, the way they operate. Because if they don't like it, they can just place it there
Yeah.
But now, if they continue holding it and they are not showing you the facial expression, that tells you they like what you give them. If you go sit next to them, if they do not like you, they will actually move away, even if they don't show it with their face. So I would say whoever decides to marry such a person or to stay with such a person, if they change, you must really rise above the waters and disagree with everybody who may want to bring you negative thoughts, because there are so many negative thoughts. As I talk like this, I have known even the other category of mentally ill people. And in majority, maybe somebody was not like that, but your spouse changes completely. You realize they are highly irritable, quite volatile. You can see some of them, if it is very deep, severe depression, they even have forgetfulness that can put all of you at risk. Like they go to the kitchen and then they forget there was food on gas, and then you hear probably they put the gas on and then they left, they went to the other room.
Yes.
And if you do not pick this, and somebody can change while you married them and they were very functional.
Yes.
Majority of spouses leave those people. And in Africa, we tend to think it must be something that is an ancestral curse. Or we say this is something that has to do with your family of origin. And you leave this person. That really makes the situation worse. And there are people who also take medication. And you can see in severe, they can forget to take those drugs. So what you need to do is to be there with them, be their accountability partner, remind them when to take their drugs, because if you don't, and because they do, like those who have just started taking drugs, it feels like a very big burden. But if you have a spouse who is encouraging you that taking these drugs is going to help you, because there are people, I want to tell you, Barbara and Eric, they can never function without the drugs, especially if it was agreed that they can only operate on drugs. So the spouse needs to be there to remind them, because these drugs have their routine.
Dr. how do you deal, just to, as you're going along on that line of thought, how do you deal with a spouse who's not really cooperative in regard to even just taking those drugs or even acknowledging that there's a problem?
Well, now those are the people we say they need inpatient treatment.
Okay.
So what do I mean? And I think in Kenya, when you hear of inpatient, we only think of a mental hospital. But it doesn't have to get there. And it's my desire that where we have reached the country, we will have accredited private institutions where, according to my ability, I can be taken, and there'll be somebody who has to make me take those drugs. But in most cases, you realize we take people to the hospital. And the minute you take the person to the hospital, that unit where we have people with mental illness is also clearly indicated. And we have not reached that level in this country of accepting mental illness is equally important and deserves attention like medical illness. So we still have people having stigma and discrimination around the same. So most people do not want to accept. Even the ones who have come out boldly, even if they speak and say, I am one person who lives with depression, I am one person who battles bipolar, we're still going to look at them, including their children and whoever is related to them. But I like the kind of energy that is being driven right now all the way from the top leadership. We have a task force that has recommendations. Although, Eric and Barbara, if I were asked in this nation, and I said it the first week COVID-19 was declared an emergency status in Kenya, I said we are going to have lots of increased cases of mental illness. And for me, I would have really gone for prevention other than finding ourselves there to cure. And even now, it's never too late. We can do a lot of prevention, a lot of advocacy, like what you guys are already saying, and we talk, and destigmatize mental illness. Because at the end of the day, you and I are going to have it rough. I'm already having a lot of work, and I have to teach. Like Mombi has been trying to look for me the whole day. And I'm having young couples coming, and I'm like, I tell somebody's husband, do you see like your wife is slowly sinking into depression? Do you know what it means when it gets to severe level? You might never have her back again. She will go and go and go. And with mental health, that is my biggest fear, that you can have someone who is normal to die. But because the situation is not changing, there is no one who is understanding what this person is going through. They go, and when the minute you start doing drugs, or rather you start using drugs to deal with the signs and symptoms, it's kind of like the way somebody is told you're viral load with HIV positive, now you need to start taking ARVs, even with mental health. And that is why I see it would prevent, it's better than when somebody starts taking those drugs, because it's not everybody who can afford the kind of drugs that can show no side effects. Sometimes the rich people, you will never know they have schizophrenia or bipolar, because there is that drug they can afford to import from America, Australia, Italy, wherever, and maybe probably take one drug in a month, which costs 30 to 40,000. So the poor people, they cannot afford that. And it's only one drug, but a whole month you're okay. You're able to work very well. You're able to relate with people very well. They will never know. But majority of people can't afford that. And because the budget for mental health in this country is still very lean. And it's not really taken as if it's that serious. So you can imagine also at the family level, where somebody thinks like you're pretending. There's a level you think this person is pretending.
Yes.
But you can never pretend about mental health.
Dr.
Even this throwing.
Absolutely. Dr. Ari, thank you for all the good work you do. I can just imagine how overwhelming it gets, from teaching, and then now in the evenings, Mombi is calling you, Mombis of the world calling you so that you can talk to us. Before you came on, I'd invited our listener to share some of their thoughts and even have an opportunity to ask questions. And one of them asked a question that I felt was quite poignant and related to me personally. A few years ago, I lost my mother, and I sensed there is away grief attacks, and if not watched, can lead to some form of mental illness. This is just from layman reading on the internet. But there's a lady here, her name is Adhiambo, had sent a message to you, and she was asking that she has a male friend who she believes is going through psychological trauma, because this male friend of hers lost his son about 5 years ago, and he blames himself for this loss. And this lady says that sometimes he just goes silent. And her question then became, how can I help someone go through such a phase in their life?
Wow, thank you so much. And she's even saying, she's pointing out trauma in here.
Yes.
Actually, loss and grief is one mental health condition that I can say has been taken for granted, especially in the African context and coming home to our own country, Kenya.
Yes.
That when we lose a loved one, there are so many factors that determine how we respond.
Yeah.
If that death is quite unexpected, or it's sudden, or it's traumatic in the sense that person just died and we're not so sure what killed them, or they were killed the way we do have thugs or robbers attacking people and killing them, or we have those murders that we are seeing like on screen, or somebody killed them, or it was a road accident, or it was an instant illness, and then somebody, before they get to the hospital, they are dead, that is likely to be a traumatic grief.
Yes.
Meaning, I am not only grieving this person, but the situation I have been put into is one that is shocking. And it has made me feel so helpless. There's nothing I could do. Like in this case, I do not know how this person lost his son. When we say someone is traumatized, you either respond in fear, and it's profound fear. That is what we call horror.
Yes.
Or you are in a state of helplessness. There's nothing you can do. A state of hopeless. You're like, I don't see anything changing here. And in some cases, you are even afraid you might also die. And you will find people behaving in a manner that when you remind them of that situation, they will do anything and fight so hard not even to remember it. If it's about people, like this person can avoid to go to the grave, depending on the way avoidance is, whether it's still in denial. People in denial would even visit the grave, and they would still not believe. They would keep the photos and still feel like this person will never come back. So we do have people, if it is a traumatic death that happened, also having dreams that are recurring and sometimes very distressing, or flashbacks or memories that don't seem to go away. So somebody is stuck in that state. Some people, they get very stressed or hyper aroused anytime they are reminded of this person by anything. It could be triggers, it could be the anniversary, the birthday for this child, or for this loved one who passed on, and the body does not even take in any stress. This person is so overwhelmed that majority over time develop panic attacks. And with panic attacks, you actually feel like you're running out of breath. You are also dying, and some people actually die. And then we are going, when they are taken to the hospital, we shall register them as people that died of heart attack. So you may also have now, this is where this person could be, that if the death was traumatic, somebody developed negative thoughts and feelings. So you used to be a happy-go-lucky person, you're never happy anymore. You used to go out with friends, you don't have the energy to do that. If it's the house, maybe it's about a wife, you used to be clean, you used to do very good meals, you no longer do that. You love your children, help you with homework. Slowly by slowly, nothing makes sense. If it's about this man, there are people who even when they lose children, they say, I don't think I'll ever want children again. I am okay. Because you are afraid you might get pregnant and this child also dies. So if you listen to different people, they have different ways of expressing their experiences. But now with loss and grief, I would like to let people know that even this is not cast in stone. There is a process everybody passes through. And it's important to ask yourself, where did I get stuck?
Yes.
For example, when we hear of death of a loved one and we were not radio, we are never really actually, even the very old grandparents, we are never ready to let them go.
Yes.
But there are those deaths that can be traumatizing, like we have heard of these cases. So people can numb, they are in shock, and that is where denial sets in. And this is where our brain sometimes is not able to process that information. So I will stay stuck, because in our brain, we do have the autopilot brain. This is the brain that automatically takes off or fights. But now in traumatic grief or death of a loved one, we not only want to fight this feeling or take off, that is avoiding it, but some people freeze. That is where we say the numbing now is like the brain has stored a memory of denial, and you stay as if your life stopped there. You froze. So those are the people that we need to really watch out when we lose our loved ones.
Oh.
These are the people, they look dazed even when the people are coming for maombolezi at home.
Yes.
These are the people you're greeting, and they are affectionless on their faces. You are going to bury this person and they are just there.
They're stoic.
2 weeks after they are in that state, that person needs a serious grief therapy or trauma therapy
Oh.
to
Dr.
be
Susan,
helped to get out of that frozen state.
Dr. Susan, how can we as a
Yes.
society have a healthy view when it comes to mental illness or health? What advice would you give us as a society on how we view it as a whole?
For me, because where we have reached right now, especially with COVID-19, everybody is at home. Because right now we are talking, we should all be at home, right?
Yes.
It's a very good opportunity for members of my family to really be on the lookout. And I tell people it's as simple as looking at me the way you knew me and identifying whether what I have been doing before, waking up in the morning, greeting you, doing the dishes, going to work, just check my face because we rarely look at each other's faces.
Yes.
I take people through a training called mindfulness and mindful self-compassion. And I tell people, and sometimes these are brothers or spouses, look at your spouse in the eye, and you find them giggling and looking down. And even now you could try it with Eric there in studio.
He's even smiling while I'm trying it.
So you find that, and you know, eyes tell a lot.
Yes.
And in Africa, I know we say the direct eye contact is like an insult.
Yes.
But I want to tell you right now, it's the best way to know whether somebody is suffering.
Even if they have red bloodshot eyes,
Really,
naturally.
Eric, I hope yours are not like that. Remember, I'm talking about family here, right?
Yes.
Even when we get tired, I'm sure you have seen when we get tired, the eyes are the first ones that tell you this person is tired, you
Yes.
know? So even when there is pain in the inside, the eyes tell a lot. But we rarely do. Even you can find somebody making noise at someone because they're not looking at them. The minute you turn back, you realize this person is weeping with a lot of pain. So I would like to tell family members, just let every morning, even when you greet me, just look at me. I could be changing and we are just under the same roof. The other thing is to find the way people socially interact. Has this person become overly irritable? Have they become overly withdrawn? Have they become overly accidental? You know, like somebody trips easily. Inaanzanga tu na stress kidogo.
Yes.
So, and even to accidents in the kitchen, if they are students, they have started dropping in their performance. So, do we know one another in our families? What about even in the workplace? Do we know one another? Can Eric know when Barbara is changing?
Absolutely.
Can I say it's time Barbara, you know?
Yes.
You need to see Susan.
Dr. You know, it's quite a shame that we are strapped for time and we have very little time. But my prayer, which I will ask through Mumbi after this conversation, is that upon these protocols of COVID being lifted and your time permits, I would personally love for you to come here in person and in flesh. So that, we have a whole healthy 1 hour conversation and our dear callers and listeners can also call you and ask questions. But just a quick question, maybe you can answer within a minute or 30 seconds. If somebody is listening to you and they want to reach you, how would they have to do that?
Well, right now I have decided to up my game, because everybody's going
Yes.
So you can get me on DocCU. That's an app. And very, very soon I'm going to have many counselors that we have to approve to offer those services online.
That is nice.
Yes.
Yes, DocCU. Just Google DocCU, eh?
DocCU.
Yeah, but
See
it's
you the
also good to
abbreviation
book
or see you in words?
ile CU, Doc nikuone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll send you the app actually, or
All
the
right.
icon of the app. But you can also give them this number 0722 36 76 19.
Please repeat the number again.
0722 0722
Yes.
36 76 19. This number is my office line. And kindly, if they really want to get me when I'm in the office, even if I'm not there, these people will pick this call
Yes.
and give you an appointment when I'm free, probably when I'm not in class. One thing I admire about Working Place, we do a lot of outreach.
Yes.
And one of it is to allow each one of us to be the best that God wanted us to be. So when I have a free moment, like an hour in between, I can see that client. I can talk to that client.
All right.
And they can also go to my YouTube account, Dr. Susan Gitau. My Facebook account, I think I should consolidate, but the one Susan Gitau may be full for now, but go there and write me something. Even on my Twitter, I'm telling you, I'm up in my game. I need to be busier than I have ever been.
Go ahead, girl. Go ahead, dog. Up your game.
It's gonna happen.
Oh yes, I am doing that. And if you also go on Twitter at Dr. Susan Gitau, and if you go to those public pages, if Instagram is again Dr. Susan Gitau. But I do have a foundation where the most desperate needy cases can receive counseling services from one of our counselors for free. That's why I started Susan Gitau Counseling Foundation.
Yes.
Dr. Harry, thank you so much. We are honored, and we just want to wish you a very lovely rest of the evening.
Thank you so much,
All
David.
right.
Thank you for your time.
And keep checking each other's eyes.
Yes. Personally, I will be checking on this gentleman's eyes.
Most definitely, man. Eric and
Emmanuel
Barbara.
fungua macho.
And nitakuangalia baadaye.
They are smart, they are funny, and unfailingly entertaining. They are the adults in the room, and they are here to help you be the best adult you can be. Whether it is matters of the heart, finances, or work that's weighing on your mind, worry not. The adults in the room